Okay, welcome to a video where we're going to take a look at some of the higher GCSE algebra skills. We're going to go straight to the first question. Write x squared plus 10x plus 29 in the form x plus a squared plus b. So a couple of clues in this question. First of all, write as in rewrite, write the same thing in a different form, no solving to be done. Into this form here. Now if you don't recognise that, we do have a word for it or a phrase. It's called completing the square. They can ask you to do that, write or rewrite this expression by completing the square, solve by completing the square, or they can give you this format. Okay, and that gives you a little bit of clue as what it should look like. So straight away, I know that I'm going to have a bracket, squared. Don't forget that squared off the bracket there. Some people do, and it costs them marks. Okay, we know that we're going to have an x, and we just need to find this plus a to start with. Well, there's a very simple rule to find it. We take this 10 and divide it by 2. Always, no matter what. If it's plus 10, half it, it becomes plus 5. If it was minus 10, half it, minus 5. It doesn't matter, whatever this number is, just half it and it drops into that bracket. So we've already found A, it takes about 20 seconds and we've already picked up a mark. Now, how do we find B? Well, a little bit more of an explanation. If I take this bracket, x plus 5, and square it, it means x plus 5 times x plus 5. So you don't have to do this, but as a bit of an explanation, we expand this bracket, x times x is x squared. I'm a smiley face person, so that's our first eyebrow. The big mouth gives us 5x, and the big nose gives us 5x. So altogether that gives us 10x. Well, that seems to be working fine. X squared plus 10x. But this is where things go a little bit wrong. Let's just see. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 25. I didn't want plus 25. So there's a couple of ways to think about this, and your maths teacher might have kind of explained it a little bit differently. One way that you can consider it is say, well, if I've got plus 25, I don't want that, so I'm minus 25. What I did have was a plus 29, and if I simplify these two terms, I get x plus 5 squared, my negative 25 plus 29 is plus 4, and that's our final answer. We can drop that into the answer line, and we've just picked up 3 marks. There is another way to think about it. If you consider this 25 here, you can say, well, what do I need to do to plus 25 to get to plus 29? And that becomes plus 4. As it is, on to part B. Now, it's no coincidence that this is y equals x squared plus 10x plus 29, exactly matching the algebra in the first section, apart from it's got a y equals this time. Now, write down the coordinates of the turning point of the graph. Well, it's an x squared graph. You should know that they always form either a U-shape if it's a positive x squared, or more of a hump or a hill if it's a minus x squared. This one's positive, so it's this shape here. Now the turning point is right here. Where does the graph stop going down and start going up? It's made a turn, it's called the turning point. Well, to figure this out, we need to consider this is the lowest possible point. From what we did before, we need part A, y equals x plus 5 squared plus 4. I need to make this, all of this, as low as possible. Well, I can't. I've got, plus 4 on the end. I have to plus 4. But here, I can change the x letter to make it as low as possible. If you know anything about squaring, even if you make a really low negative number and square it, it becomes a bigger positive number. So if I might make this minus 10, make it minus 20. Square it, it'll just make it bigger. So the best we can do is make this whole bracket 0. So if I consider how to do that, I've got plus 5, so if I put my x in as minus 5 to cancel out with the plus 5, that makes 0, and 0 squared is still just 0. So if I've dropped down the y equals and the plus 4, put my x in as minus 5, when I do minus 5 plus 5 I get 0, 0 squared is still 0, and add 4 gets 4. So that's the lowest that can be. The lowest point, the turning point of this graph is at minus 5, 4, minus 5 to make the bracket equal to 0, and plus 4 because 0 plus 4 makes 4. Okay, we're going to go straight into the second question. Solve algebraically these simultaneous equations. Well, the first thing to note, if it says solve algebraically, you are not allowed to just guess numbers. You must show a method. If you just guess the numbers right, you don't get credit for it. You must use an algebraic method. And this is what we need to do. Now, first thing, simultaneous equations. This one's a quadratic. We're picking some of the hardest questions. 6 marks available, 2 x's, 2 y's. Lots to do for these 6 marks. The first thing to spot is that if I switch this round to 4x squared minus 9x minus 1 equals y, well, this one's equal to y as well. So I can put y equals 5 minus 4x. All that equals y, all that equals y. So I can actually chop the y out of it completely and write 4x squared minus 9x minus 1 equals 5 minus 4x. Get the y's out of there. We've just got x's now, so we can solve. So, how do I solve this? It's a quadratic. Your maths teacher should have told you to solve any quadratic, we need to basically put it equal to 0. So, plus 5 goes over to be minus 5. Minus 4x goes over to be plus 4x. And we need to rewrite it. So, we get 4x squared minus 9x plus 4x is minus 5x. And minus 1 minus 5 is minus 6. Now, this could come up on a non-calculator paper, so we should know that we need to factorise to solve this type of equation. It's not an easy factorisation. We've got different options could go here. It could be x and 4x, or 4x and x. It could be 2x and 2x, and then at the end, I could have 1 times 6, one of them being a minus, 2 and 3, one of them being a minus. There's lots of different options. And if you're happy with just trying those out to find one that gives us minus 5x, do so. Just try them out till you find it. There is another way. Okay? So, we need to find a number. If you've not seen this method before, it's worth learning. We need to find a number which adds together to make minus 5. So sums together, 2 numbers, that sum to minus 5. And we need 2 numbers whose product is what you get when you times these 2 together. 4 times minus 6, which is minus 24. Now if we take a look at the factor pairs for minus 24, we get 1 and minus 24. That gives me minus 23, no good. 2 and minus 12, that gives me minus 10. Closer, but still no good. 3 and minus 8, well, that seems promising. And 4 and minus 6, that gives us minus 2. So this one here is the one that gives me minus 5. Now, why do you say? What's the point? Well, if I go back to my original equation, 4x squared, I'm going to break this minus 5x up into plus 3x minus 8x. They come together to make minus 5x. They times together to make minus 24. These are the numbers that I wanted. Okay, stick the minus 6 on the end, and they equal 0. Now, I'm going to do a slightly different factorisation. I'm going to cover up the second 2 terms and just leave the first 2. Just what goes into 4x squared and 3x. Hopefully you spotted it's x. So if I take an x out, I'm left with 4x plus 3. You might not quite understand why we're doing this yet, but it'll all become clear. Next up, minus 8x minus 6. I'm going to take out minus 2. Minus 2 fits into those. Better to leave the positive ones behind. Leaves me with 4x plus 3. Now, something unexpected has happened. Or it might be unexpected if you don't know the method. This bracket matches. So, in fact, I can transfer that across to be one of my brackets in my factorisation. 4x plus 3. Now, you might be wondering, well, where's the other bracket? Well, it's hiding. It's hiding here and here. It's x minus 2. So I just need to put x minus 2 in the other bracket. If we were to expand those, we would get 4x squared minus 5x minus 6. I'll let you check that if you want to. How do we get our answers, however? We're not quite there. We've not got 6 marks. Well, we need to drop these out. So because it's a factorisation, either 4x plus 3 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. I'll start with the easy one. Minus 2 goes across to be plus 2, so x equals 2. I can drop that into my answer line. One of the x's is 2. Over here, plus 3 goes over to be minus 3. So 4x equals minus 3. Divide by 4. X equals minus 3 over 4. Minus 3 quarters, if you wish, minus 0.75, but I'm happy sticking with the fractions. So my other x value is minus 3 quarters. Then we need to find our y values. Well, we can just use our equations here. I'm going to use the easiest equation that I can, which is the bottom one. Y equals 5 minus 4x, which leads to y equals 5. I'm going to pick my easiest one first. Minus 4 times 2. Don't forget your bid mass. I've got to do 4 times 2 or minus 4 times 2 first. That's minus 8. Don't get all the way to the end of a hard question like this and mess up something easy like bod mass. 5 minus 8 is negative 3. So when I put 2 in, I get negative 3 out. And then second of all, I'm going to do my second equation, which is my second x value. Y equals 5 minus 4 times negative 3/4. Looks trickier than it is. Still a non-calculator question because I'm timesing by 4 and then dividing by 4. So that times by 4 and divide by 4 cancel each other out, leaving me with 5, take away negative 3. Minus 4 times minus 3 would be positive. So y equals 5 plus 3, which is 8. So y equals 8. And we've just picked up 6 marks near the end of our GCSE paper. Would be one of the final questions on the paper. Could even be the last one. 6 marks available. Right, the last question we're going to go through on this particular situation is show that the line 3y equals 4x minus 14 is perpendicular to the line 4y equals minus 3x plus 48. Well, this idea of lines being perpendicular, well, this is the thing you need to know to be able to work out this question. You need to know the gradients of perpendicular lines are negative reciprocals of each other. Now there's a whole lot of confusing words there. Gradients, how steep the lines are. Perpendicular, meeting at right angles. Negative reciprocals, well, we'll get to that in a minute. But we're talking about gradients. And this all follows through from one of the things you should have learnt way back in year 7 and year 8, is that every straight line can be written as y equals mx plus c. Okay, with y being the y coordinates, x being the x coordinates, m being the gradient, and c being the intercept, the y-intercept, the y-cut, the constant. It's called a lot of different things. Well, we've got to change our equations we've got here into that format. So the first one, if I want it y equals, it says 3y, so I've got to divide it all by 3. So the first equation becomes y equals 4 over 3x, we've got to do that bit divided by 3, minus 14 over 3, so we've got to do that bit divided by 3 too. Don't worry about this, or this. Those fractions are fine. There's no need to worry about changing them into a decimal or anything like that. Notice I haven't used a calculator. What I've written down there is fine. Same with this equation over here. It says 4y, so I've got to divide by 4. Y equals minus 3/4 x divided by 4. 48 divided by 4 is 12, so a bit of mental arithmetic to do there, but it's not the most important part of the question. Okay, now we've got to look at these gradients. I said the gradients of perpendicular lines are negative reciprocals. So there's two ways of looking at it. If you look at the first gradient and you multiply it by the second gradient, you should get minus 1. So you can prove it that way. 4/3 times negative 3/4. 4 times minus 3 is minus 12. 3 times 4 is 12. And negative 12 divided by 12 is negative 1. Don't forget to finish off your question by then writing, so the two lines are perpendicular. Okay, make sure you're clear that you've proved it, you've done the right thing, you've given him the right answer. The other way is to do it in a bit more of a logic, explainy kind of way. Start with 4/3 and say we're going to work out the negative reciprocal. Okay, to work out the reciprocal of a fraction, you flip it upside down so it becomes 3/4. It's positive here, so we add a negative sign on. So you can say 4/3. If I take the negative reciprocal of that, I get minus 3/4. That's on one of the lines, that's on the other line. Okay, which are the gradients of the two lines. So they are perpendicular. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. Any questions, come and find your maths teacher and they'll help you through any of these topics.